Welcome to the Red Door Church Sermon Podcast. Red Door Church is a church seeking to transform the city of Pretoria by the power of the gospel. We are distinctly mission-minded, community-cultivating, and city-loving. Please enjoy this week's sermon, and don't forget to follow and continue the conversation by sharing with those around you.
These three boys that we brought along, well, they're in your hands now, so good luck with that. Guys, no, it's a privilege for me to be here with you, and wow, this is a great word. I'm going to jump into it. I'm going to trust that Uli's prayer was good enough, so we're gonna jump right in with that. James 1 verses 2 to 17, being grateful in difficult times. Quite something to talk about, right? Given the situation that I think our world is in. But we're going to do it. We're going to jump into the Word and we're going to learn from it this morning. Now, guys, just by way of bringing us into this text, so I recently heard about a Roman Catholic priest in Nairobi, Kenya, who, his story was being told. He's been diagnosed with Lou Gehrig's disease. I don't know if you guys know what Lou Gehrig's disease is, but it's a disease that attacks your nervous system and your muscle use. And so you begin to lose function in your body, and it eventually kills you, right? So it's a fatal disease. Now this priest, he already began to lose the use of his arms and his legs. And people were praying for his healing, of course, as you do in your church community. They were praying for his healing. But the strange thing is that his church began to grow a lot during this difficult time in his life. And he couldn't understand why exactly, but people began to tell him that, somehow through his worsening disease, he was becoming a different person. A person that the broken community around him in which this church was felt attracted to. People were sort of drawn to the person he was becoming in the midst of his sickness. They say things like he was growing in wisdom. He was becoming a wiser man. He was growing in kindness and compassion. He was growing in empathy and sympathy. He cared more to reach out and step out of his own comforts, which is strange, right? And this drew more and more people to the ministry. They wanted to understand what's busy happening with this man, and so it sort of built his ministry in a way. Now, of course, the people continued to pray for his healing, but his own prayers started to shift. His own prayers became prayers of gratitude. He was grateful for what God was busy doing in his own life. And not just in his own life, but also through his life into the wider community. Now, guys, that really put the cat among the pigeons for me because, how do you reconcile those things? It caught my attention because what a remarkable thing. What a remarkable thing to be grateful when life is really difficult. In a sense, that, I guess, is the great mystery, the great secret of life in a way, isn't it? What can really sort of overcome that? It's really a strong thing to be grateful when life's really difficult. And my takeaway from that story was it helped me to see that gratitude probably has less to do with how difficult your life is. And it has much more to do with who you believe God to be. Who you believe God to be, and what His purposes may be with the difficulties in your life. I see that's the anchor point, right? So our passage today, guys, is all about gratitude in difficulties. Not because of the difficulties themselves per se, but because of who we believe God to be and what His good purposes may be with the difficulties. Different thing. So we're going to jump into this passage and we're going to sort of drag it out from the tail. Verse 17. Let's jump in at verse 17. It says there, every good gift and every perfect gift is from above, coming down from the Father of lights, with whom there's no variation or shadow due to change. Okay, so guys, there's a lot of detail just in this one verse, as in, in the rest of the passage. And I don't know, we've got about 3 hours to do this, so I'm going to move along. There's a bit of detail in this one verse. We're going to get into that just now. But for now, guys, the overall idea I want you to see in this verse is this. The every good gift and the every perfect gift that's spoken of here, That would probably be the thing that we're grateful for, right? Those are the things that we appreciate, we're thankful for, the every good gift, the every perfect gift. Well, this brings us into relationship with God, right? It brings us into relationship with the one who gives it to us, namely God. So immediately, just receiving good things, good gifts, perfect gifts in life, brings us into relationship with the giver. We are the receiver, he is the giver, God. So this verse shows us that everything we receive in life that we can be grateful for comes from God. So why is this an important point to make? Well, we can try and illustrate it. So every year, when our children have their birthdays, Grandma Corey and Grandpa Sissel send gifts from the Cape. Now, that's where they live, so the gifts come. So we make sure that our kids not only enjoy what they get, but also who it comes from. Wouldn't you do that? We all would do that, right? But why? Why is that important? Well, because while in the short term they probably appreciate the gifts much more than knowing who it actually came from over the longer period, long after the gifts have been played out, or broken, or forgotten, or outgrown, they still have the care and the love of Grandma and Grandpa in their lives. It's more consistent. It's a solid foundation. That's why we do it. Because it's more important than the thing that they receive. Because the thing they receive comes and goes. But who it comes from, that's something a bit more solid in life. So friends, in the end, gratitude has more to do with God's care for us than it has to do with what, life gives us now and gives us later, or doesn't give us, or, what we're supposed to receive and not receive. We all know that the things of life come and go. Try and hold on to anything. Go ahead, do your best. Hold on to anything. I'm trying to hold on to my youth. It's not going very well. Right? I thought I could hide it with a beard, but that went south very quickly. It's going all grey. You can't hold on to much. The things of life come and go. The things of life are up and down. Life seems to get better and worse all at the same time. But God continues to care for us. So that's the reset. That's the source that Neo has to get back to. God cares for us. That's the key. That's the secret to gratitude. It's the golden compass. It's the secret that we need in order to cultivate grateful lives. Now, okay, guys, granted, let's run this through a bit. Many of us can argue that, no, wait a minute. We can be grateful for things in our lives without needing to believe in God, right? You don't need to go all the way to God in order to appreciate anything. We don't have to believe in God to appreciate our children, although it helps. We don't need to believe in God to appreciate our husbands or our wives or our cars or our homes or our careers or our education, whatever else it may be. We can appreciate many things in life without bringing God into it. Now, guys, that's all well and good. But what happens if any of these things are taken away? When it's not enough anymore, when it gets broken and frustrated. You see, that's building on the sand. You've just went and built your house on the sand. What happens when it changes? Or when it doesn't turn out the way we like? You still going to be grateful then? You see the problem. What then? How does one continue to appreciate life, given how difficult life can be and how broken it is? Now, I take for granted that all of you, like me, we all want to appreciate our lives rather than not. It's not like we wake up in the morning and say, how can I not appreciate life today? We're all struggling to appreciate our lives. Because we know that our lives are much more joyful, our lives are much more meaningful, much more purposeful, and probably means a lot more to the people around us if we can appreciate life. Everything is better if you appreciate life. Isn't that true? I mean, when you're sick, that's one thing, but when you're sick and bitter, that's a bit worse. You want to make life less worse? Don't be sick and bitter. Just choose to be sick. So we want to appreciate life. There's a common sense to wanting to appreciate life more. It makes everything better. But how do we do that? When life not only gives us birthday gifts, nice birthday gifts, right? Because you don't receive birthday gifts that are not nice. Well, you're not supposed to. Life doesn't just give us birthday gifts that are nice, but also difficult things that are not so nice. So how do we reconcile that? How do we become grateful people when life may be good now, but not necessarily later? And that can shift in 2 minutes. And that's exactly why it's often so difficult for us to escape cynicism and bitterness and hardness of heart in life. There's a saying, it says, show me a young man that's humble, and show me an old man that's content. It's because of this issue. The goodness of life is not always self-evident. And guys, that is why we must build our lives on God's care for us, rather than our circumstances. If our appreciation of life is built on circumstances, then life will have to be a certain way. You know how to see if you're building your life on your circumstances? You become very controlling, very manipulative. You want life to be a certain way. Or else, we lose our appreciation for it. No wonder so many people become very bitter when life does not turn out the way they want, because they lost the footing on their own appreciation of it. But if our appreciation for life is built on God's care for us, rather than our circumstances, then we can still learn to appreciate what good thing God may be doing through the difficulties that He sends our way. Because we don't engage the difficulties directly. We engage them through the lens of knowing that God is somehow in the midst of this difficulty, busy being good to me and caring for me and loving me, as we sang earlier. It's a different approach to life. We come to life bringing something into it, not expecting life to give us what we need. We come to it established and firm. Think about it, guys. The Spirit of God hovered above the waters in Genesis. The water's chaos. God brings order into it. We are called to come into life bringing goodness and order into the world, not waiting for the world to give it to us. We are the image bearers of God in the world. Right? So we build on the foundation of His love and His care for us. Speaking of God's care, so now we're going to jump into this verse a bit more. Look at verse 17 again. Speaking of God's care. So let's just try and put some color around this idea of God's care for us, on which we're supposed to build our lives, right? Verse 17. The Father of lights. That's a verse describing God's care for us. The Father of lights, with whom there is no variation or shadow due to change. That's a description of who God is to us. It's a believer. This is a Christian's understanding of who God is. The Father of lights, with whom there is no variation or shadow due to change. Guys, the thought here is striking. God's care for you is like a star. I don't know, like the star, like the sun. Right? That's the light in this verse, the heavenly light. It's talking about the heavenly light, stars, the sun. I don't know if you've ever noticed, but stars don't have shadows. It's not like the sun is hanging in the sky and then it turns a sort of a shadowy side and we're all, oh dear, what's going on? It stays a light. God's care for you, the verse says, is like that. It's like a star that has no shadow. So what does that mean? It means this: God's care for you is pure. God has no other hidden agenda in your life except to care for you. Never, ever, ever, ever. It's not who He is. His care for you is pure. There's nothing else in His agenda for you. That's a striking thought. Which means if you wonder whether God is busy caring for you, the right answer is yes, He's busy caring for you. So now you've got to learn to grapple with whatever you're grappling with in another way. You can't go to the place that says God doesn't care for me, because He does. His care for you is like the sun. It's pure. There's no hidden agenda. But the verse says more, right? It goes on. The verse also teaches that God's care for you is the care of a father. Now we all know, guys, that a father who stops caring for his children is not a good father. Is there any culture in the world where the people say, we rally and our thing is we believe there should be bad fathers who don't care for their children. No culture in the world thinks that's a good idea. But unfortunately, that is all of us at times. Uncaring, But God is the Father with whom there is no variation. In other words, not only does God care for you in a perfectly pure way without any hidden agenda, like a shining star, but like a good Father, He will never, ever, ever, ever stop caring for you. That's one verse from James. This is going well. There's a lot more to this passage, right? Now, guys, just before we move on, this is actually not easy to believe. You found that in your own life? I mean, we can say these things to one another this morning, and you'll walk out and you think, yeah, that sounds great. Try believing it. It's not easy to believe, because often life seems to suggest to us that God cannot possibly care. So we need to be convinced of it. We need to be convinced of it. And that, friends, is the gospel of Jesus. It's God's conviction to us. It's Him convincing us. That's what the gospel is all about. So Jesus came to convince us of God's care for us. And when God sent Jesus to convince us of His care for us, what did we do? We said, well, okay, fair enough, you say that. Let's test it. Let's test you. Let's prod you and poke you and jab you and stab you and do all kinds of weird things to you to see if you're going to still care. You see what the cynical world does? We all did that. Do you still care? Okay, let's do that to you. Do you still care? Now let's do that to you. Are you still going to care? We tested it. When we spat on Jesus, when we whipped Him, when we crowned Him with thorns, when we nailed Him to a stump, when we rejected Him, when we cursed Him, when we betrayed and killed Him, His care for us remained pure. Pure, there was no other agenda. And it remained unceasing. It actually overcame, it won, it conquered. He is the King that wears His crown like thorns. So guys, in fact, what we did to Jesus is what we actually deserved from Jesus. So you see, it goes even further than that. Not only did He constantly keep caring for us amidst all the difficulty that we placed on Him, but that difficulty we actually deserved from Him. So the judgments we deserved from Jesus and from His Father were actually placed on Him by us and by the Father. And He took it willingly for all of us. Because, why? Simple answer. He cares more about you than He cares about Himself. It was proved, it was tested, it's a historical fact. What James 1:17 teaches us is a historical fact. God was revealed as the one who cares purely and unceasingly. It's a true verse. You can take it to town. You can build your life on James 1:17. It's true. Friends, this is the sun in the sky under which we live out our lives through the pleasant and the unpleasant times. Doesn't matter what goes on in life, that sun keeps shining. It's there, it's constant. Every day may not be a birthday with nice gifts, but every day is lived in the light of God's pure and unceasing care for us. It's a light that is shining in this world. It's given. That's good news. Right? That's the good news of the gospel. Our faith in this good news is what ultimately makes us grateful people in difficult times. So let me put it this way, guys. When you wake up tomorrow morning, you realize it's not your birthday, but it is in fact Monday morning, so life throws a ton of bricks on you. And in your distress, you call out to God and you cry out like David. You say, Lord, I do not feel grateful about my life today, but please help me to believe that you are still busy caring about me through these difficulties. Here's my question, guys. Are you being grateful or not? Well, you're not as grateful as you can be. I can always come up here and tell you, you can be a little bit more grateful. We can all be a little bit more grateful, right? But you are grateful where it matters most. It's an important point to make because gratitude doesn't always make you jump up and down with just exuberant joy and flip up. Sometimes it's hard to be grateful. But when you say, Lord, please help me, Monday, it's a godless day. He's nowhere on the scene. That sun is not coming up today. It's Monday morning. Then you say, Lord, help me to believe, even though I don't see that sun, that it will come and it is in the sky. That's gratitude, friends. That's biblical gratitude. Because what it does is you're taking God's care for you to heart, and it helps you to engage your difficulties that day more constructively. You step into them, wanting to meet with Him and see what He's doing. It's the hard road. So I want to share with you the words of a song by Gillian Welch. Gillian Welch, she's a sort of a bluegrass American folk singer. I love her stuff. It's a sad song. It's a sad song, but guys, it's more than a sad song. It's a sad song, but it's more than a sad song. So I'm going to read the words, and then let's just look at it a bit. The words go like this. I'm not going to sing it. I'll read it. We leased 20 acres and 1 genie mule, the mules they use, for farm work. We leased 20 acres, that's from the bank, so We leased 20 acres and 1 genie mule from the Alabama Trust, which was put in place for the farmers to help them. For half of the cotton and a third of the corn, we get a handful of dust. Corruption. We cannot have all things to please us, no matter how we try. Until we've all gone to Jesus, we can only wonder why. The song goes on. I had a daughter. Called her Annabelle. She's the apple of my eye. Guys, if I had a daughter, I would call her Annabelle too. It's a beautiful name. We've got 2 goats. The one is called Anna, the other one is Belle, so that compensates a bit. We had a daughter, called her Annabelle. She's the apple of my eye. Tried to give her something like I never had. Did not want to ever hear her cry. She wants her daughter to have a different life. Isn't that every parent's dream? But we cannot have all things to please us, no matter how we try. Until we've all gone to Jesus, we can only wonder why. Last verse of the song. When I'm dead and buried, I'll take a hard life of tears from every day I've ever known. Anna is in the churchyard now. She's got no life at all. She's only got these words on a stone. We cannot have all things to please us, no matter how we try. Until we've all gone to Jesus, we can only wonder why. Guys, this woman is hurting. Right? Sound familiar? Sounds like life to you, right? This woman is hurting. Her life is very difficult, and she lost her only daughter. What does gratitude look like to her? Because that's your neighbor. That's most likely a bit of you and all the people you know. You're going to be glib? What does gratitude look like to her? Well, let's look at the song, right? The song tells us that her difficulties and her pain and her loss is with Jesus. Every tear she sheds, she brings to Him. Why do that? Why is she doing that? Wouldn't you be tempted to just say, stonewall all of life? You see, there's something soft in this song. There's something miraculous going on. Why come to Him? Every tear she brings to Him. Guys, somewhere in her difficulties, she must believe that He cares. And that He will bring something good out of her difficulties. She's willing to believe that even now, she doesn't understand exactly how God's goodness is working in her life. And it's breaking her apart, but she's holding on to faith. Is she grateful or not? He will bring something good out of her difficulties. Guys, more than that, she does not know. But make no mistake, what she knows is not nothing. In fact, what she knows is more than what most people on this planet knows. It's enough. What she knows is enough. You don't need to be the smart guy in the room. You need to have that faith in God. It does not take away her hurt, but notice that it does something with her hurt. It changes it. She communicates more than pain and loss through her song. She communicates trust in God's care. That's why this song is encouraging. That's why it's encouraging. That's why she wrote it, to encourage us. The song is sad, guys, but it's more than that. It's encouraging. So, I want to move on, guys. Verse 17. Bring the rest of the verse to our attention. Have you guys noticed every good gift, every perfect gift is from above? Coming down from the Father of lights, right? There's that bit we looked at, with whom there's no variation or shadow due to change. Now, guys, okay, so from this verse, we already saw that God cares for us. His caring is pure and unceasing, right? Let's bank that. But what is meant by every good gift and every perfect gift? What does that mean? Is that your experience of life? On this point, look at verse 16. Verse 16 reads, "Do not be deceived, my beloved brothers." So it's setting us up to be careful what we read next. "Do not be deceived, my beloved brothers." Then verse 17 speaks of every good gift and every perfect gift. So there's a way in which we can take those words and say, I think I know what this means, and then we're deceived. It's not obvious what it means. The passage wants to make sure we think very carefully about what is meant in verse 17. So here we all are, thinking very carefully this morning. Let's do that. The Bible warns us, guys, in another place that in these last days in which we now live, people will be lovers of pleasure rather than lovers of God. And that's the danger with reading verse 17. That's the danger. We think every good gift and every perfect gift means every nice gift and every pleasant gift, like every day's birthday. So God is basically saying every day is going to be birthday for me. Do you guys treat your children like that, those of you that do? Have a birthday every day? So, to understand what is meant here, guys, we've got to go to verses 2 and 4, because that helps us to understand what is meant there. So, look at those verses. Verse 2 to 4. "Count it all joy, my brothers, when you meet trials of various kinds. For you know that the testing of your faith produces steadfastness. And let steadfastness have its full effect, that you may be," notice the word, "perfect." See, same language. Every good gift, every perfect gift, so that you may be perfect and complete, lacking in nothing. I thought what I needed to lack nothing in life is just birthday gifts every day. Well, try that for a year or two. It's not going to go so well. We need more than just pleasantries in life. Guys, on these verses, I'm pretty convinced that at times our children, they love Grandma Corey and Grandpa Sissel just a little bit more than they love us. And the reason is obvious, isn't it? Because from us, they not only get pleasant birthday gifts and sweets, they also get vegetables, they get discipline, and then they get schoolwork. You're going to love your parents for that? Over your grandma and grandpa who just brings gifts and sweets? It's unfair, I tell you. However, guys, try to convince them that it's good for them. A lot of you guys who are in university still not convinced it's good for you. Try to convince them that it's good for them. Their argument is very, very similar. It's a strong argument. I want to see if you can poke a hole in this one. If vegetables, discipline, and schoolwork were really good, Daddy, why is it not pleasant? Now, if anyone has a good answer to that, please write the book, because I'm going to buy it and I'm going to read it and recommend it to my friends. Here's my own attempt at an answer to them. Okay, son, the goodness of vegetables is not in the taste. It's in the result. It builds your body, so you can go out and play. Do you enjoy playing outside? Aha, you've discovered the wonder of vegetables. The pain of discipline teaches you good manners. Why is that important? Because without good manners, guys, you're not going to function well in a community. No? Is it important to function well in a community? It is. You can't do it without good manners, so you need discipline. It can't be all just about you. You've got to be disciplined, brought into step, placed behind boundaries, so that you can accommodate more than just one person in your universe, to be part of a community. Right, so the pain of discipline produces that, great communities. Schoolwork equips you with understanding, which will help you to cultivate a competent life in this world. Try raising a family without some measure of competence. Or making a living. Schoolwork does that, helps you to be established in the world in a more competent way. Great stuff, great gifts. Do you think they fall for it? Their counter-argument is this: all those things must be true without the vegetables and the discipline and the schoolwork. They've got to wake up one morning and then suddenly it's just all true. So, I guess one needs patience with this sort of things. But guys, as parents, we know that our children will not regret all the vegetables, discipline, and the schoolwork in the end. You know how I know this? Because I grumbled about those things when I was young. And guess what I'm doing with my kids today? I'm feeding them vegetables, I'm disciplining them, and I'm giving them schoolwork. Somewhere along the line, probably what happened to me was I started to understand the value of these things. That's how we know that they will not regret it in the end. It proves itself over time to be valuable. They're very likely, my own kids, to one day give their own children vegetables, discipline, and schoolwork too. And my silly reasons I gave for why those things are wonderful, they're going to share those same things with them as well, right? Why? Because they will have realized its benefits. Guys, that's the idea of verses 2 to 4. That's what verses 2 to 4 in James 1 is wanting to tell us. The good gifts and the perfect gifts that verse 17 speaks about are sometimes nice things for which we're immediately grateful. It doesn't exclude those things. We do have birthdays and birthday presents and wonderful, pleasant things. But sometimes there are also things that are not immediately pleasant, for which we're not immediately grateful. The good and the perfect gifts of God are often the trials of various kinds that James speaks about there in verse 2. Guys, what are these? These are difficulties in life that test us, that try us, that expose us, that hurt us, that challenge us, that wound us, that weaken us, that bound us, that deprive us, that threaten us. Are those things necessary in life? They're also called trials of various kinds because we do not have control over them. They can come at us from any and every direction, as they often do. They can seem very random, which is sort of what our culture believes about life. It's all random. Don't take it too personally if the planet crashes you on the cheek. It's just random. But here's the most important thing to see from this verse. The most important thing to see. They come from God because He cares. That's why there are trials in our lives. They are gifts from God. They are His good and perfect gifts to us. Now think about this, guys. If life only depended on us, how would you order your life if things didn't just come at you? What sort of things would be in it? Trials? Not likely. Right? Because not everything that is good for us is immediately pleasant. How would you learn to appreciate anything good if it's all depending, if all of life depends on you to choose? You're not going to choose the best things for yourself because you don't see ahead, but God does. Often life is unpleasant, full of trials of various kinds. So guys, on the one hand, we need to know that if your life is pleasant now, it may not be pleasant later. So be careful to be only grateful for the pleasant things in your life, because it won't last. It won't last. It's going to disappoint you. On the other hand, we need to know that if your life is not pleasant now, God is busy caring for you through the unpleasant thing. So be careful that you're not ungrateful for everything that is unpleasant. See how this works? The secret is to learn to be grateful that God has got his eye on you and that he cares for you. That's the secret. That the difficult trials you face in life are his good and perfect gifts to you. That's the big point that James is wanting to make. So like the woman in her song, which I read earlier, guys, we cannot necessarily figure out in the moment how the difficult trials we face are actually good and perfect gifts from a caring God. Which is why, look again at verses 2 to 4, which is why James calls us to faith. You can't reason this out exactly. You need to believe it. And we have good reason to believe it. You're not going to, from your circumstances, always figure out how this thing is good. But you can reason in your circumstances that God is good because he revealed himself to you through Jesus, his son. You can have that certainty. And that is enough to get you to put one foot in front of the other and not be a jerk about it, but actually be constructive. Gives you strength. That's why these verses call us to faith. Faith in God's care is necessary when life is difficult. So this begs the question, how do we practically exercise faith in God's care when life is difficult? How do we do this? How does this work practically? Well, we do it firstly through steadfastness. You pick up that word there, steadfastness. So look at verse 4. And let steadfastness, right, that's in the face, in the light of all these trials that are difficult, because God cares for me, because this trial somehow is a good and a perfect gift from God. What does that sort of churn up in your heart? Maybe I need to step into this difficulty and be steadfast with it. Shoulder it, face it, engage it, not run from it. Steadfastness. So what's meant with steadfastness? What does this actually mean? Well, let me again illustrate it, right? In our home, my wife loves it when I bring her tea in bed in the mornings. I've got to be very careful now because she's sitting there. She loves that kind of thing, you know. Now for all of you, you know, that's an easy thing to do. You all love to take your wives and your husbands or your siblings or your parents' tea in bed in the mornings. I know you all love doing that. You can't wait to do it. But me, I struggle with this kind of thing. Okay, it's difficult for me because I've got to get up and serve somebody. My wife, however, loves it. It means a lot to her. So one morning, not every morning, but one morning, I managed to take my wife tea in bed. I know, it's ridiculous, but it was a big moment for me. The Lord worked in my heart, guys. I woke up early, didn't know why I was awake. I had no troubles, had no anxiety. Well, I do have a lot of troubles and anxieties, but that morning it was just not there. I didn't know why I was awake. So I thought, well, what did David do when he was? Oh, darn it, he prayed and he read the Bible and did stuff like, okay, so let me try that. So the Lord started working in my heart in the early hours, and I eventually somehow realized, you know, I got to now get up and go and make my wife tea, bring it to her in bed. So that was a wonderful thing to me because I realized, you know, wow, I feel that I want to be more sacrificial this morning towards my wife. It was a wonderful feeling. I'm going to stand up, be sacrificial. I had a song in my heart. I knew that mattered. You know, you've got to have the right attitude about it. You can't grumble and make the tea, then it's useless. So, you know, I was in the right spirit. The Holy Spirit was upon me, guys. I was there. So, pulled myself out of the feathers. Not pulled, jumped out of bed. Tiptoed to the kitchen, song in my heart, made my wife some tea. And then I took it to her. And then she turned around and she looked at it, annoyed. And she went straight back to sleep. Right? So, you know, what's a nice word to use here? Because I didn't have nice words then. I was crushed. I know, guys, it's pathetic, right? Crushed. My wife didn't appreciate my tea. I was crushed. She did not appreciate my heroic sacrifice. My first thought was, Can you guys guess what my first thought was? I'm never, ever sticking my head out like this again. It's not happening again. But the Lord then spoke to me as he started doing that morning. I know, it's a dangerous thing to say, the Lord spoke to me, but boy, did he speak to me. On the one hand, he encouraged me because I accomplished something sacrificial in faith that morning that I did not accomplish the previous morning. And I realized, okay, this is not good. I don't like what's happening here, but man, I was growing as a Christian. And then I realized, oh dear, now I need to grow again as a Christian. You see? Right after the Lord encouraged me that, no, you did something great. You took a step in the right direction. But guess what you got to do now? So the Lord challenged me. You got to do it all over again. Knowing that your wife might not appreciate it. Welcome to my world, boy. You want to follow me? Let's go. Whoa. Not sure I want to follow this guy anymore, right? Take up your cross and follow me and you'll find life. Difficult, guys, difficult. But the Lord challenged me. Because look how easily I stumble in serving my wife when it gets a little more difficult than it already was. What's needed in my life? Some steadfastness. Because you know what makes for a healthy marriage? Being a little more steadfast in serving one another when the other guy, when the partner doesn't deserve it or doesn't appreciate it. You're going to build your marriage like that? Good luck. Oh, well, you don't deserve it today, so I guess there's no marriage today. Well, the last 3 weeks you didn't deserve it much, so I guess for the next 3 weeks, no marriage. Can't live like that. Can't live without steadfastness. You can't be God's image bearer in the world and produce order out of chaos and bring goodness into this world if you're going to be falling around like that. You need a bit of steadfastness. How do you get it? You buy it in the shop? You learn it through difficulties, trials. Now, guys, I thought I was doing quite enough. Right? There's my limit, God. I'm going to be sacrificial, right? Quite enough. Taking my wife tea in bed. Right? That was enough for me. That was the horizon of my vision for life. Taking my wife tea in bed. That's awesome. I'm going to do that. That's enough. But when she did not appreciate my effort, it all became suddenly way too much. I'm out of here. From quite enough to out of here. Then the Lord came along and challenged me that actually it's far too little. It's far too little for a healthy marriage. You got to learn more, boy. So I needed to learn to keep serving my wife better and better the harder it got. How did I have to learn that? Wait a minute. I followed God into this nightmare. Could it be that maybe He wants me to keep following? That He will be good to me, that He will be caring. So, steadfastness. You step further into the difficulty. Right? We said earlier, don't be afraid, don't be dismayed. God is leading us. That's what I needed to learn. Guys, that's what's meant with steadfastness. You keep doing the difficult thing, trusting that it is a good and a perfect gift from a caring God. That is steadfastness. It exercises your faith. You can't have a faith that you don't exercise. It's useless. The same James says, throw it away. Go give a bread to somebody instead. It's useless. It has to be something that you can exercise. It's not easy to serve people to begin with, and it's harder still when they're not always going to appreciate it. But guys, if we don't learn to be more steadfast in those things, life cannot work for anybody, because nobody deserves it. That's why Jesus said, let him pick up the first stone. We'll all just kill each other. It's good for people to be served this way. Is that not the way God serves us? Is God not steadfast? Do you appreciate God's steadfastness in your life? That's a trick question, you see. Because if you say yes, guess what? You're on the hook. Then you should also appreciate God's challenge for you to be more steadfast with difficult things in your life. See how this works? So the Lord was busy teaching me to love my wife better and better the harder it got. Am I great at it? Not at all. Boy, am I terrible at it. But my faith is calling me back to action. Saying, come back, come back, come back. Don't become cynical and bitter. Get back to it. Am I grateful for it? No and yes. I don't exactly enjoy serving people who don't appreciate it always. Do you? Is it fun? Can't wait to do that again. I don't particularly enjoy that. Yet, guys, what I do appreciate is how the Lord cares enough about my marriage to challenge me to love my wife better and better the harder it gets. I appreciate that. Would that we have friends in our life that does that to us, challenge us like that, right? Because that is what makes for a good and a healthy marriage. And guys, for that I'm grateful. So now, am I grateful for the trial? I'm struggling to be, but I am. So, firstly, we exercise faith in God's care when life is difficult through steadfastness. Secondly, we do it as we seek to be wise. See? Wise, wisdom. You often lose your head in difficult situations, and then afterwards you think, okay, I don't know what I could have done about the difficult thing, but boy, I could have been just a little wiser in the situation. Well, guess what? That's part of God's purpose with difficulties in your life, is to create wisdom in you, to make you a wise person. Who doesn't like wise people? Are they good for the world? No, bring back the fools. You know? No, bring the wise people. Part of why God gives us difficult trials is to grow us in wisdom, like any good parent would for a child that he cares for. You want your children to become wise, not always be the victim of their circumstances. So let's look at verses 5 to 8 there to pick up on this point. I'm reading through it very quickly. I warned you guys, 3 hours, 2.5 to go. If any of you lacks wisdom, let him ask God, who gives... Right, this is still in the light of the difficult trials. If any of you lacks wisdom, let him ask God. God, here's a difficult trial. It's not my birthday, it's a ton of bricks, it's Monday, it's all that stuff. Oh, wait a minute, here's an idea. God, please give me wisdom to deal with this. You ask that a lot? What kind of questions do we usually ask God when we're faced with difficulty? Lord, please help. But what do we mean by that? What do we mean by that? Let me read the verse first, and then the verses, and then we'll get into it. Let him ask God, who gives generously to all without reproach. That same caring God, and it will be given him. But let him ask in faith. What kind of faith? The faith we spoke about this morning. God, you care. This difficult thing is a gift from you. Okay, I accept the gift. Thank you for the gift. I'm not so grateful, but thank you. I'm learning to be. Now, Lord, help me to be wise with it. Right? That's what's going on here. Let him ask in faith, with no doubting. For the one who doubts is like a wave of the sea that is driven and tossed by the wind. In other words, yes, this difficulty is from you. I need wisdom for it from God, but I'm not sure I trust that it's from God. Let me put it on the shelf for a little bit. Let me blame somebody for it. Double-minded people like that. For that person, it says, must not suppose that he will receive anything from the Lord if he asks help. He's a double-minded man, unstable in all his ways. What's going on here? Guys, sometimes my eldest son doubts that the schoolwork he has to do is good for him. Not sometimes, oftentimes. In fact, always. Right, so then when he asks for my help, what is he asking for? Well, I figured out he actually wants me to do his schoolwork for him. So, am I going to be a good parent and do his schoolwork for him? Right, with you guys? Would you do it? Some days we do it because, we just want him to win and peace to be established in the house. So, but is it a good life strategy to do my son's work for him every time he says, Dad, help with my schoolwork? But what he means is, Dad, do my schoolwork. I'm not going to do it. Am I a bad parent because of that? I hope not. See, asking such help from me is not going to help him because it won't be good for him. What will be good for him is if he learns to do his own schoolwork. That's going to be great for him. Great for me too. It's great for him. If he's willing to trust that his schoolwork is good for him to do, then my help will probably help a lot if he asks for it. In the same way, guys, we often ask the Lord for help, but what we're really looking for is escape. Then we don't get it. And then we say, God doesn't care about me because, if he did, he would let me escape. He can just create it out of thin air. There's the escape door. Go, out. Why doesn't he do it? Guys, because his purpose is to teach us to deal with life wisely. He called us to be a community of light in this world, to be a wise people, because the world needs wisdom. And so somebody's got to step up and say, well, I guess if I'm going to learn wisdom, I better get into this difficulty, trust that God cares for me and all that, and learn wisdom from him. so that I can actually mean something to the world. That's the idea. His purpose is to teach us to deal with life wisely. If we appreciate this fact and we ask the Lord for the wisdom to deal with our lives more wisely, then the Lord is happy to help us learn such wisdom. In fact, James promises us that God will give us the necessary wisdom to overcome life. The Lord is not going to help us escape everything that is not pleasant in life. Because He cares for us, He's going to teach us wisdom. And for that, guys, we can be grateful. That's how we exercise faith in God's care. We face difficulties asking wisdom, not wanting to escape it always. So firstly, guys, we exercise faith in God's care when life's difficult through steadfastness. Secondly, through wisdom, seeking wisdom. Thirdly, we do it by being more content with our lives. Okay, so verses 9 to 11. We're almost there, guys. We're almost there. Let the lowly brother boast in his exaltation. That's verse 9, 10, 11. And the rich in his humiliation, because like a flower of the grass he will pass away, for the sun rises with its scorching heat and withers the grass, its flower falls and its beauty perishes. So also will the rich man fade away in the midst of his pursuit. So what is going on here? Well, every poor guy wants to be rich. And every rich guy has got problems. What now? Many things work like that, right? David Paulison, he's a marriage counselor. It's sort of up my alley. I do pastoral work and that kind of thing. So he's a pastoral counselor, marriage counselor, specifically a marriage counselor. And he sums up his 30 years of marriage counseling this way. He says, every unmarried person who comes to see me wants to be married. And every married person who comes to see me wants to be unmarried. So, where do we go now for the good life? Is it married? Is it unmarried? Is it rich? Is it poor? What is it? It's none of those things. What about we learn to be more content with what we have and where we are in life? But how do we do that? Well, guys, the point is this. Nothing you seek in life can give you what you already have. What do you already have? What do you already have today? Before you go running off and grumbling about what you don't have, you've got God's care, His love for you, written in blood upon the pages of the Bible. He's behind you 100%, with His full arsenal of resources at His disposal for your care and your benefit. That's what you have. Are you rich or poor? Are you found or lost? See how this goes? If we learn to appreciate and have faith in God's love and His care for us, what happens with us is we become more content with whatever we have in life. It doesn't have to be perfect. It can even be difficult. But we're not desperately looking for better situations. Instead of constantly grumbling about what we don't have or would like to have, we learn to appreciate what God is busy doing now. Okay. So guys, firstly, we learn to appreciate God's care in difficult trials through steadfastness. We do it through seeking the necessary wisdom to handle it better. We do it by being more content with the difficulties so that we don't keep running from them again, right? But we face them and we accept them and we work with them. Lastly, we do it by seeking to do the right thing when life is difficult. I don't know about you, but when life is difficult for me, I often feel justified in being a bit of a jerk, doing the wrong thing. And when I do the wrong thing, guess what? It's everybody's fault who put me in the situation in the first place. Don't look at me, right? We justify difficulties and trials in life. We justify bad behavior, doing the wrong thing through it. You guys do that too? Okay, I'm not alone in the room. Verse 12 to 15, guys, we're moving to an end here. Blessed is the man, notice, blessed, we're going to come back to that. Blessed is the man who remains steadfast under trial, right? For when he has stood the test, he will receive the crown of life, which God has promised to those who love him. Let no one say, so in all of this, let no one say when he is tempted, I'm being tempted by God, for God cannot be tempted with evil, and He Himself tempts no one. But each person is tempted when he's lured and enticed by his own desire. Then desire, when it is conceived, gives birth to sin. And sin, when it's fully grown, brings forth death. So guys, when I sometimes lose my temper in a bad way and yell at my naughty children, which never happens, I'm just speaking hypothetically. What do? I tend to blame them, even though I actually feel bad about my own behavior. What I do is I tend to blame them, or I tend to blame God for my yelling at my naughty children. I tend to be like Adam, who accuses God and says, this woman, or in this case, these children that you gave me, God, you were tempting me, weren't you? But friends, God did not give me the difficult trial of naughty children to justify my yelling and bad temper towards them. Then why did He give me the wonderful gift of naughty children? Well, here's one idea for you guys. He did it to expose me. Ha! There's nothing that exposes your heart like marriage and children. I'll tell you guys that. James 1:17 already taught us that the trials of the Lord are good and perfect gifts. They're not there to tempt me to do the wrong thing. They're the opposite. They're there to teach me to do the right thing. See how this goes, guys? They're meant to challenge and train me to do the right thing, and part of what that means is it exposes you. The Lord does not tempt us to sin so that we can blame His temptations when we sin. The Lord's trials seek to expose and confront us with what needs to change in our lives so that we can learn to be better people. Guys, such trials are the most difficult gifts of the Lord to appreciate. You're going to be first in the queue that says, please, more exposure on my terrible, terrible state of life and heart. Can I have more exposure, please? No one says yes to that. But without it, we cannot learn anything. We need to be exposed and confronted with the need for change. Nobody wants to be told, hey, you got to change. There's some stuff in your life that needs to change. But friends, such trials, it's the hardest trial to receive from the Lord, but it is the most blessed gift from God to appreciate, says the verses there. The most blessed thing when God starts getting His fingers into the issues of your heart that needs to change through the difficulties in your life, where you get exposed and you realize, oh dear, I'm not the best dad of the year today. Do we say thank you for that? Are we appreciative of it? Blessed is the man who receives such trials from God and who sees them as opportunities to learn to do the right thing. Why, guys? Because God cares enough about you not to leave you where you are. You're going to keep flattering your child as he grows up? Or you're going to confront him sometimes, tell him, boy, you've got to learn to change in some areas in your life. That's what God does. So James sums up this thought beautifully in verse 18. And with that, we're going to close, guys. He says, according to His will. We didn't read it earlier, but this is verse 18. You can look at it or just listen to it. According to His will, He has begotten us by the word of truth. What is that truth? The truth of His care for us. It's not rocket science, right? It's not the Raptor engine. It's God's care for us. It's a simple truth. So that we may be the first fruits of His creatures. In other words, so that we may learn to become better people through the trials of God that expose and challenge us to change. It's painful, guys. It's painful. But that's what's happening. The trials of God are there to teach us to do the right thing, not the wrong thing. So, guys, to sum up everything, as we close, gratitude is not firstly our reaction to how things are going with us. It's firstly our faith in God's care for us. Life is pleasant sometimes, many times it's not. In fact, more often than not, it's not pleasant. Can we agree on that? But God is pure and unceasing in His care. And because of that, every difficult trial God sends our way is meant as a good and a perfect gift to grow us in steadfastness, in wisdom, in contentment, and in being better people. So, guys, thanks for the opportunity to share these thoughts. Let's pray. Father, we ran through this morning and we need to sit still with it. These are difficult things to know about You. It's not a convenient God. You are not a convenient God. You are a sovereign God who sees more than we do, who cares for us deeply, and who will not spare us. You will not spare us because You've got good things in store and in mind and in view for us. Help us, Lord, to go out and be a church like that in this world, so that the people can, in our lives too, see and recognize that there is this God. Father, help us in this. Take us home with these thoughts. And Father, help us to take just one step in the direction of difficulties if we fail to do so, and if we're afraid and we feel overwhelmed. Build our faith this morning and help us to step out in faith and trust the living God who cared for us and gave his Son. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.